Welcome. Happy Easter and welcome to Unity of Charlotte. I am Reverend Lisa Herklotz. I co-minister here with my husband, Reverend Jim, and we are delighted to invite you to this very sacred and joyous Easter Sunday service. If you are here in person, if you're joining us on Zoom, or maybe you're even watching this afterwards on our YouTube channel, we just want to say we're so glad that you're here to tune in for this Sunday message, especially this Sunday, as it's a very special one. We want to begin by reading our mission statement together. This is why Unity of Charlotte is here. So please join me. Unity of Charlotte is the place where we nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, we're here to love, grow, and serve. Thank you. Is there anyone here visiting for the first time? Welcome, and thank you for wearing your Easter ears. They're beautiful. We are delighted to have you here. And our ushers will have a packet if you so choose to take one. Oh, you've already got it. Perfect. We are right on it. Thank you, ushers, for that. We're so delighted to have you here. And if you're new online, put your information in the chat and we'll be sure to get a visitor's packet to you too. It has more information about who Unity of Charlotte is. You're also invited to stay for fellowship afterwards to meet this amazing and friendly community and ask us any questions you might have. There are also many different ways to reach out and find out about Unity of Charlotte. We have a website, a newsletter, we have a Facebook page up and running now, and we have our past services that you can watch on YouTube. So we are out there getting this light shared in any way we can. Also to let you know that there are things we announce on Sunday, but there's lots of other things going on that we put on the bulletin board. So be sure to check the bulletin board out on your way out to the fellowship hall. So let's now take a deep breath in. Let it out on a sigh. Feel that collective opening of heart and mind as we move into prayer together. Take a moment to feel the sacredness of this moment and of this space and of this particular time as we celebrate the culmination of this spiritual journey called Eastertide. It is the morning in my soul. No longer do I seek among the ashes of the past for something to live by today. We let the past go. Christ is risen in me. Hope springs to life. Mourning returns to rejoicing. Faith proclaims its victory. It is a new spirit I feel in my mind and my heart as I enter into a world made new, into a life made new. Today we celebrate and honor the spiritual journey that Jesus undertook as he showed us our own light and eternal life through his demonstration. And now, as we open to experience that Christ light within, we see the same light and life of God rising up and moving into every heart that is grieving, every mind that is suffering, every body that is in pain. Together we claim the awakening of spirit, uplifting every soul, bringing an unprecedented peace across this world. This is our Easter prayer. And so it is, and so it will be. Let us join together as we say our prayer of oneness. There is one presence and one power in my life and universe, God, the good omnipotence. And now I open up to a moment of silence as you may say a name out loud of anyone you'd like to uplift in prayer or any situation you would like to uplift in prayer. Please speak that forth now. And we know that each one of these names spoken aloud or in our hearts has been heard, and that Spirit is working in and through each person, each situation to bring about healing and the good that is present. And so it is. We'd like to let you know that if you feel you're in need of prayer or would like to offer prayer for anyone else, we have a prayer team that takes prayer requests. You can leave our prayer box is now outside the sanctuary door with little prayer request forms. You can fill those out, leave them in the box. We have forms you can go to online and also through our newsletter. And all those prayer requests go to our prayer team where they are collectively prayed on. And I believe it's after 4 weeks, they then go to silent unit 14 days. They then go to silent unity where they are continued to be prayed on. So if you have a prayer request, know that we're here to support you. Now I'd like to bring up Ron and Maria to read from our daily word.
Arise. I rise to accept new life and renewal. Jesus rose above all limitations, transcending darkness to light and life after death. His overcoming death is the ultimate inspiration and example for humankind, a precious gift of hope and renewal. This Easter, I gratefully accept my renewal as I awaken to the call of the divine. I turn to the Christ presence within me and discover new life and energy, lifting me into higher awareness and understanding of spiritual truth. In so doing, I leave behind that which held me in bondage. I rise above limiting beliefs, habits, and actions. With unwavering faith, I rise to accept inspiring new possibilities and the fullness of God's glorious life, love, and grace. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. By his great mercy, he has given us a new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. Peter chapter 1, verse 3.
Levantarse. Me levanto para abrazar una vida nueva y renovada. Jesús trascendió todas las limitaciones, pasando de la oscuridad a la luz y de la muerte a la vida. Su victoria sobre la muerte inspira la humanidad y en su preciado regalo de esperanza y renovación. En esta Pascua acepto mi propia renovación, despertando al llamado divino. Acudo a la presencia de Cristo en mi interior y descubro una nueva vida y energía que me guían hacia una mayor comprensión de la verdad. Al hacerlo, dejo atrás todo lo que me detiene. Me elevo con encima de creencias, hábitos y acciones limitados. Con fe inquebrantable me levanto para abrazar nuevas posibilidades y la gloriosa plenitud de la vida, el amor y la gracia de Dios. Bendito sea Dios el Padre de nuestro Señor Jesús Cristo, que por su gran misericordia y mediante la resurrección de Jesucristo nos ha hecho nacer de nuevo a una esperanza vida. Primera de Pedro 1:3. Gracias.
So good to see all these bright, shiny faces this morning. So good to see you. And you all know that I have a daughter that lives down in Jacksonville, Florida. She is 32 years old. Her name is Hannah. And because I feel qualified, because I'm a dad, and you know where I'm going with this, to tell you a dad joke. Happy Easter. And I would expect nothing less than a little bit of a groan from everybody. So thank you. Thank you for participating in that dad joke with me. So today is Easter Sunday. Happy Easter to everybody. It is the first Sunday following the first full moon, following the spring equinox, which was March 21st. And I know out in this crowd, we have some astronomers. So I needed to say that. That vernal equinox of March 21st is a date set by the Catholic Church. I know. Please don't corner me and harangue me. I know that it could be the 19th, 20th, or the 21st. But when we calculate Easter, we use the 21st on that. Again, following the full moon, following that equinox. Next year, it is 3 weeks later, on April 20th, I do believe. So that's how much it can swing from one end to the other. And the average, or the most common date for Easter, is April 13th. So this year, we're celebrating it in March. And again, happy Easter. Traditionally, so let's get a little more serious here. I need to take that breath and regroup. Traditionally, today commemorates the resurrection of Jesus. But for us in the Unity Movement, we honor this day a little bit differently. And you can see from the slide behind me, release, regroup, and renew. Those 3 R's that we're going to be talking about here today. Release, regroup, and renew. If you are taking notes, because I do know that I have some folks out there that are taking notes, write those 3 words down and everything will come back to you later on. Because we celebrate Easter a little bit differently, we're not here to necessarily recite the Easter story in terms of literal words within the New Testament, but at the same time, hear me. I'm not here to take away the Easter story from you either. Do you hear me? Because I've been cornered before, and we honor wherever you are within this teaching, this Easter week, all the way from last week when John Stringer talked about Palm Sunday, all the way through Easter Sunday. You could be in that side of the spectrum where it is a literal teaching for you. Yes, and that's okay. I'm here to say that's okay. You could be all the way on the other side of that spectrum and say, Reverend Jim, that didn't even happen. And that's okay too. It's all right. We're going to talk about everything in between here today. But before we jump into the actual literal story of the New Testament Easter week, as I mentioned, we talk about metaphysical interpretation within unity. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today, a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is based on that as well. And if you attend pub theology on a Thursday every other week, you'll know that this came up was it last week or the week before? This is one of our tools in our toolbox. So we have a set of tools in that toolbox. Metaphysical interpretation is one of those that we pull out every once in a while in order to inspire us, in order to learn from, in order to live by. So we're going to talk about that. And I have a clicker here somewhere. And we're going to go to, I know it's a lot of words. I've been told multiple times, do not put this many words on a slide, but I couldn't help myself. Metaphysical interpretation, this is the definition of it. This is the Wikipedia, if you will, definition of this. Metaphysical interpretation refers to the spiritual analysis of concepts or texts beyond their literal or physical meaning. It involves delving into deeper levels of meaning. Hear that, deeper levels of meaning. Exploring symbolic or abstract concepts, and it often involves considerations of the nature of reality, experience, consciousness, and the universe. That's kind of where unity's coming from. Experiencing that possibility from the universe. This approach is commonly found in the spiritual context where symbolism, allegory, and abstraction play significant roles. And we're going to get rid of that because there's a lot of words on that. But before we get back into that, all of those words and how we process this story, let's honor, for those of you who are a little bit further to this side, let's honor the traditional Easter story. This is the Easter story in 60 seconds. We started with Palm Sunday. John Stringer talked about that last week. This is the entering into Jerusalem on a donkey, and somebody mentioned to me the cross on the donkey last week. That's an awesome imagery. Jesus visited the temple. He turned over tables that next day as he worked, or as he met with the money changers. He spent the next day on the Mount of Olives as he spoke to his disciples. This is known for scholars as the Olivet Discourses. He focused on faith in those lessons that he taught. There was Passover. There was the Last Supper. These are the upper room teachings that we talk about of humility. Jesus washed the feet of the disciples during this time. Jesus then spent some time in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was betrayed by Judas. He was arrested. He was put on trial. He was crucified, laid in a tomb, and on Easter was resurrected. We all heard that. We honor that Easter story as well. So right off the bat, many times people have come up to me, Reverend Jim, do you believe in the Easter story? And I'm going to say, absolutely, 100%. I'll tell you at the end of this talk. Yes, I'm going to come back and revisit that. But in the meantime, we're going to explore. We're going to explore that. And I want you to, and we're not going to do this out loud. Sometimes I ask you to raise your hand or shout out loud. We're not going to do this out loud because I don't want anyone to be singled out or anything. But what do you believe? Just take a moment in your own heart. And what do you believe? You may even believe some parts of this story and not others. And I'm saying that's okay as well. But very briefly touching on the concepts of tolerance and religious diversity that we do try and speak to and talk about within unity. It's okay that the person sitting next to you might not believe exactly what you believe. And yet we can go out there and have a cup of coffee, put our arms around that person and say that I love you, right? Absolutely. It's okay. What I can tell you is that if you ask 10 Unity scholars this same question, what happened during Holy Week, you would get 10 different answers. Absolutely. So in other words, there is no one Unity dogma or story about this. There is flexibility within the approach that people take within this. You would ask one minister and he would say, absolutely, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the Acts, that's exactly what happened. There's no doubt about it. And in their heart, his or her heart, yes, that's their truth. Some would say, no, this is simply an allegory or a metaphor for us to learn lessons and apply them within our own lives. More accurately, this story is, or Easter is not a metaphor, because sometimes I use that word, it's a metaphor, but it's more accurately, it's an allegory, right? And let me go down this rabbit hole just a little bit. An allegory is usually a longer story, right? It could be a story, it could be a book. C.S. Lewis wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. That is an allegory of a Christ-like figure that died and was risen. That is an allegory from C.S. Lewis. A metaphor would be something more like, she's got a heart of gold. Now, it's not really gold, but you get the idea. That's the metaphor. So when we talk about this, it's more of an allegory. And for us, metaphysically, again, release, regroup, and renew. You see those three words up there. So the skeptical student might say something like, let me apply this story metaphysically to my own circumstances and see if I can learn from this allegory, this story. Let me let go of the old way, or maybe my old way of thinking or existing. And that, letting go, that release word, that is the Good Friday lesson. That is the release. So Good Friday, the crucifixion. Let me, again, and this is the student speaking here, let me remove myself from this situation. Let me center myself. Let me regroup. That's the 3 days in the tomb, the Saturday piece of this. And then I can rise up from that dark place, renewed and ready for the next phase of my life. Again, that third word, renew. That's the Easter, that's the resurrection piece of what we're talking about here. And after going through all of these pieces in my own mind through this week as I'm researching and writing this talk here today, I came up with an affirmation that I'm going to use, and I invite you to maybe use it as well this coming week. Let me read through the whole thing. Let me say the whole thing, and then I'm going to ask you to repeat it with me. So this affirmation that I'm going to take with me is, I am led from darkness into the light. I am renewed. So let me say a piece of it, and then I'll have you repeat it. I am led from darkness, and into light. I am renewed. Thank you. Thank you. So let's go a little bit deeper into the Sunday Easter phase of this Holy Week that we've talked about, and specifically these 3 days that we talk about: release, regroup, and renew. Let's talk about that piece that might feel within our lives, if we're using this as that symbol within our own life, those times of darkness and despair, right? That's the tomb experience, that darkness and despair. This is the death. This is the ending of something in our lives. It is the ending. And imagine this. Imagine feeling separated. Imagine feeling alone. Imagine in the story that this stone is rolled in front of the door and you can't move that stone. Just feel that. I feel the anxiety myself of that. I feel that limitation myself, that darkness and despair. We might find ourselves in that dark night of the soul that 16th century Spanish mystic St. John of the Cross wrote about. That dark night of the soul. That's the tomb experience. I'm in that place. I don't know which way to turn. I'm feeling lost. I don't know what to do. I don't even know which direction to head necessarily. And if I'm honest with myself, I'm feeling despair and I'm feeling confusion as well. And as early as Thursday of that week, 2,000 years ago, again, after the Last Supper, after that time within the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus walks with Peter, James, and John, his disciples. And again, this is literal, so forgive me, but this is an illustration of that despair that we're talking about. He's walking into the garden and he asked Peter, James, and John, hey, hang out with me, sit with me while I pray, right? That's what he's asking his friends. He spent 3 years with these guys, and he's asking them this simple task, hey, support me here. Sit with me, maybe in silence as I pray. And what happened? They fell asleep. They fell asleep. I would probably come out and say, dude, you let me down, right? What's going on? He's in a vulnerable place. He's asked for help, and here they fall asleep. Now, the literal story isn't that important, but think about those times in your life where you're headed into that dark place. Maybe someone, maybe it's family and friends, has let you down. Or something, maybe it's a situation where you're feeling that dread moving into it. And if you're honest, you had a rough idea of what was coming ahead. And maybe Jesus did as well. And if we go back to the New Testament, to the Christian scriptures, Jesus is quoted as saying, let this cup pass by. So this is his prayer. Let this cup pass by. He's anticipating this. Maybe he's even dreading what's coming up. But if I must drink, your will be done. He had a rough idea what was coming up, that betrayal, that trial, those dark times ahead. A friend was about to deny him 3 times. He's been judged. He was physically abused. But he told himself, I'm not going to run from this experience. In fact, I'm going to face it. And with faith, I'm going to move through it. So again, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, release, regroup, and renew. Easter is that ultimate victory over darkness. Whether you believe in the actual resurrection or not, it is that ultimate victory over darkness. The Gospel of John would say, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness. So this is quoting Jesus. I am the light of the world. And this follows that lesson. He's saying, follow my lead. Not necessarily that it's important that I did this, but follow my lead in moving through that despair and darkness and into the light of renewal that we're talking about. This applies to our lessons in our own life. This applies to all the situations that we come face to face with. Again, my affirmation, I am led from darkness into light. I am renewed. So when I was growing up, the church of my youth, the church that my mom still practices, of my family, of my greater family, we had once a month as part of a service, we had testimonials. Anybody else of their youth, where from the congregation people would come up and stand up and we would call it bear our testimony. We would bare our souls to the congregation. And so that's what I grew up. That's what I'm used to. That's what I've experienced in my life. And back then, so many years back then, there was almost a judgment too. It was like, it wasn't a good testimonial unless you cried and you got somebody else to cry out there, right? That was a good testimonial, right? Ooh, on a Sunday. Things were going, things were moving. So I promised that I would tell you what I believe as well. This is me bearing my soul. This is me giving my testimonial, if it were, on what do I believe in terms of the Easter story. I believe historically, absolutely, there was a Palm Sunday, there was an event at the temple, there was lessons being given at the Mount of Olives, there was a Last Supper, that upper room was used as a teaching to the disciples. There was the Garden of Eden where Jesus prayed. I believe there was a trial. I believe that there was a tomb experience. Resurrection. I'm not sure, honestly. Can you honor that for me? That I'm a little bit skeptical, even as a minister within the Unity faith. I use this as a metaphysical teaching in my own life, and I'm not here to tell you that it has to be one way or another. I just don't believe in the literal nature of that last step. It was metaphysical. That resurrection is a lesson of renewal for me, and that lesson of renewal absolutely 100% applies in my life. And I use it on a daily basis. Know that I love you, I bless you, I appreciate you, and I see the divine in each and every one of you. Namaste. Let's spend a few minutes in meditation. So I invite you to wiggle around. I invite you to make yourself comfortable. For me, thank you, Jim. For me, I place my hands in my lap, I close my eyes, and I shift my attention to my breath, and I move from that head space down into my heart as I continue watching my breath for a few moments. I invite you to do the same as you find that rhythm with your breath, listening to my words as we just fall deeper into this time. This time where we explore the idea of regrouping and renewal. And we know that during this time, our mind may wander, but we come back to either the words that I'm speaking or the breath. We use that as an anchor. We acknowledge our humanness and that darkness that we enter into from time to time. There's no denial. This happens. It's part of our experience. But we know with every fiber of our being that we're not meant to be here forever. There is a time, there is a regrouping, and then the stone is rolled away, and we come back into the light of renewal. We know that this is our reality. This is our spiritual story. This is what our reality is based on. Making the choices that allow us to move from darkness into light. It is a choice. And it is a joy when it happens. I take another breath. I let it go. I drop a little deeper as we spend the next minute or so in silence. And as we begin to come out of that silence, we become aware of the room around us, of our breath. And when we're ready, we can open our eyes and be back here now. Namaste.
Well, thank you, Reverend Jim. Release, regroup, and renew. I'm feeling it. So I welcome you now to this part of our service where we reflect and express circulation, the law of life and love, which is movement and circulation. And we do it through our offertory blessing. So I invite you to hold your gift in your hand. If you give electronically or other ways, just imagine that is in your hand or hold it over your heart as we say our offertory blessing together. Joyously, I give this gift, knowing the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. The light of God surrounds us. We are light. The love of God enfolds us. We are love. Power of God protects us. We are power. The presence of God watches over us. We are presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.